Stadium is 10,077 seats. Filipino community, boom, it was sold out on Wednesday night.
For 30 minutes, something happened in Toronto that the WTA did not see coming. The seats were gone. Not overnight. Not in a few hours. 30 minutes. And the reason wasn't a top 5 superstar. It was a 21-year-old Filipino tennis player who had just stepped into the biggest spotlight of her career. Alex Eala, Filipino-Canadian journalist Chris Reyes recently wrote for CBC, and her report carried something unusually personal. She admitted, quietly, that there is a special thrill in hearing the Tagalog word, laban, meaning fight, shouted from the stands at an international tennis tournament. This week in Toronto, that word was everywhere. Thousands of fans packed the stands, calling Eala's name and creating an atmosphere that felt completely different from what you would normally expect for a player making her Toronto debut. And the timing could not have been more dramatic. Just 4 days earlier, on August 3rd, Eala had walked onto a hard court in Washington, D.C., and stunned the tennis world by defeating world number 4 Jessica Pegula in 3 sets. But she didn't simply win. She finished the final set with a 6-0 bagel, capturing the Mubadala City DC Open. A WTA 500 title. The IT was historic. Eala became the first Filipino player to win a WTA singles title. Then, just 2 days later, she arrived in Toronto with another piece of history attached to her name. She had reached a career-high world number 20, becoming the first Filipino player ever to break into the WTA top 20. But rankings alone don't explain what happened next. Because when Eala was scheduled to play at Toronto's Sobeys Stadium, the tournament wasn't expecting the kind of crowd normally reserved for the sport's biggest stars. According to tournament director Carl Hale, they got something much bigger. Hale, who has been involved with the National Bank Open for more than 2 decades and has worked around some of tennis' biggest names, said they had never seen a player ranked outside the top 5 create this kind of effect. He explained that Eala's fans were specifically waiting to find out when she would play. And then came the statement that may have caught the entire tennis industry's attention. All the tournament directors are talking about it. Everybody in the industry is talking about it. Think about what that means. This is no longer just a Filipino fan story. IT is no longer simply about one young player having a breakthrough week. IT is about the WTA discovering that star power doesn't always come from a top 5 ranking. Eala is proving that a player can bring an entire nation with her. Yes, some critics online have called her overhyped, and that criticism exists. But 30-minute sellouts, historic rankings, a WTA 500 title, and thousands of fans chanting Laban are becoming very difficult to ignore. Alex Eala isn't just climbing the rankings anymore, she's changing the conversation. The answer doesn't have to come from her supporters. It came from a racket that on August 3rd, Alex Eala stepped onto the court for a 3-set final against the tournament's number 1 seed. And what happened next gave her critics something much harder to dismiss. Because if you really want to understand what happened in Toronto, you have to start with a simple math problem, and Carl Hale walked straight into it. When Eala's second-round match was first announced, tournament officials placed her on Grandstand Court, a venue that holds around 2,800 spectators. On paper, it made perfect sense. She was ranked 25th at the time. She was playing an American opponent. It was a Wednesday night. Grandstand was the appropriate choice, until the ticket requests started coming in. According to Hale, speaking to Philippine media and later appearing in a WTA video shared across the tournament's social channels, demand for Eala's Wednesday match climbed beyond 5,000 ticket requests. 5,000 for a court that could hold only 2,800 people. At that point, this was no longer a simple scheduling decision. It was a problem, and Hale had to make a call that he moved Eala from Grandstand to Center Court, the tournament's main show court, with room for approximately 10,000 fans. It was a major gamble. And then something happened that caught everyone's attention. Center Court sold out in just 30 minutes. 30 minutes that a player outside the top 5 had suddenly created demand normally associated with the biggest names in women's tennis. But the sellout was only the beginning. Because there are plenty of reasons a stadium can fill up. A new star. A promotional push. A one-time novelty. A lucky scheduling moment. What made this different was what happened after the seats were filled. Once Eala walked onto the court, the flags came out, the chants started, and the atmosphere inside the stadium became impossible to ignore. Reporters at the tournament described a loud, coordinated, unmistakably Filipino crowd that felt less like a traditional tennis match and more like a football game. That was the moment the tennis industry started paying attention. And according to Hale, tournament directors from other stops on the WTA Tour began talking about what they were seeing. His message to CBC was striking. Everyone was talking about it. That is not something a tournament executive says casually. IT suggested that the conversation had moved beyond one match, one tournament, or even one player. The bigger question was becoming impossible to avoid. Could the WTA's next major growth opportunity be a fan base that travels with its player, not simply a country the tour visits, but a global Filipino diaspora that turns up wherever Eala plays? And that conversation was already reaching outside tournament offices. Former world number one Andy Roddick discussed what he called Eala-mania on his podcast, Served with Andy Roddick. He pointed to watch parties and fans gathering around Eala's matches and made it clear that he was fully buying into the phenomenon. But notice what Roddick was really doing, that he wasn't simply praising a promising young tennis player. He was giving the phenomenon a different name, a movement. That distinction matters, because a marketing campaign can create attention today. Viral moment can create excitement, but a movement requires people to care deeply enough to show up. And that brings us to the most important part of this story, the performance. Because no matter how loud the crowd becomes, no matter how many tickets sell, and no matter how much social media talks about a player, eventually the racket has to answer the question, is she actually good enough? And in Eala's case, the answer is becoming increasingly difficult to argue with. The wins are there, the title is there, the ranking is there, and now, the crowd is there too. The hype didn't create the results. The results created the hype. On Wednesday night, in front of a packed center court in Toronto, Alex Eala faced an opponent she already knew all too well. Alicia Parks, the same American player who had defeated Eala at the Australian Open back in January. Same opponent, different stage, and, most importantly, a very different Alex Eala. From the opening point, Eala played with authority. She stormed through the first set 6-1, immediately putting Parks under pressure. Parks responded in the second. She found her rhythm, fought back, and took the set 6-4. Now, everything came down to one final set. And this time, Eala didn't panic. She stayed composed, found her opening, broke Parks in the fifth game, and never looked back. The final score in the deciding set was 6-2 after 1 hour and 51 minutes. It was over, but the numbers told an even bigger story. Eala created 14 breakpoint opportunities during the match, and when the final ball landed, she had accomplished something historic. She became the first Filipino player, male or female, ever to win a main draw match at the National Bank Open. That wasn't just another victory, it was another piece of Filipino tennis history. The WTA's own recap added even more context. It was Eala's 6th consecutive match win, her 10th straight victory when winning the opening set, and her 17th career WTA 1000 match victory. Look at those numbers together and one thing becomes clear. Everything surrounding Eala right now is moving in the same direction. Up. And that is exactly why one particular quote from tournament director Carl Hale matters so much. Not because Hale is a celebrity, he isn't. His influence comes from something much more important, his job. Tournament directors are not supposed to make decisions based on emotion. They look at ticket demand, scheduling, capacity, attendance, and the numbers behind the business. They don't move a player onto a 10,000-seat center court because they hope fans might show up. They do it because the data tells them they have to. And when the data breaks the model, they notice. Hale described Eala as an absolute blessing to the sport of tennis. He talked about the Filipino community turning out in huge numbers and called the atmosphere sensational. But his most significant statement remains the one he gave CBC. They had never seen a player ranked outside the top 5 create this kind of effect. That is the statement worth remembering. Then there is Chris Reyes, the Filipino-Canadian CBC journalist whose reporting helped bring this story into the Canadian mainstream. With more than 15 years of experience in North American newsrooms, Reyes understood that what was happening in Toronto was bigger than one tennis match. In her article, she briefly stepped outside the usual distance of sports reporting. She wrote about the thrill of hearing Laban, the Tagalog word for fight, shouted from the stands of an international tennis tournament. It was a small passage, but it carried enormous meaning, because suddenly, a word that might normally be heard inside Filipino homes, family gatherings, or local communities was echoing through a major international tennis stadium. And that brings us to the bigger picture. Statistics Canada has documented the significant size of the Filipino-Canadian community, particularly in the Toronto region. But the numbers alone don't tell the story. Toronto demonstrated something far more powerful. It showed that a Filipino sports story can now turn a massive community into a stadium audience in just 30 minutes. That isn't simply fan support, that is market power, and Alex Eala may be the player who finally made the tennis world notice. The Philippines is home to roughly 100 million people. Yet before Alex Eala, the country had never produced a Filipino woman inside the WTA's top 100 singles rankings. Think about that, an entire nation with millions of passionate sports fans had been waiting for a player who could finally break through on the biggest stages of professional tennis. And this week in Toronto, something changed. The ticket numbers showed it, but the significance goes far beyond tickets, because what happened with Eala may force the WTA to rethink how it measures a player's value. For decades, tennis tournaments have largely planned their growth geographically. Guadalajara, Riyadh, Beijing, different cities, different markets, different audiences. But Eala's Toronto week offers a completely different possibility, that a tour shaped not only by geography, but by diaspora. Imagine a player who can travel from tournament to tournament and consistently activate thousands of fans from one global community. If Eala can repeatedly generate thousands of ticket requests wherever she plays, the scheduling conversation changes. Suddenly, her ranking isn't the only number tournament directors are watching, but none of this was guaranteed, and that part of the story matters. Just 7 months ago, at the Australian Open, Eala was ranked number 49 in the world, and she lost her opening round match to the same Alicia Parks she defeated in Toronto. The Filipino fans were already there in Melbourne. They had waited for hours to watch her, but Parks won in straight sets. That January afternoon is the honest counterweight to the excitement surrounding Eala now. The fans existed, the passion existed, but the results had not yet caught up. Then came 7 months of transformation. Eala climbed from number 49 to number 20 in the world. She reached her first WTA final. She defeated former US Open champion Naomi Osaka. She defeated Canadian favorite Leylah Fernandez. She won her first WTA title in Washington. And then, in Toronto, she got her chance to settle the score with Parks. This time, she did it in front of the biggest crowd of her career. That timeline is important because it answers the overhyped argument in the most convincing way possible. Not with a social media post, not with fan enthusiasm, with results that go back to the image that opened this story. Chris Reyes, writing for CBC, describing the feeling of hearing Laban, the Tagalog word for fight, echo through a Canadian tennis stadium. Then, remember Carl Hale's observation about a player outside the top 5 creating an unprecedented ticket surge, 30 minutes, 10,000 seats, a Wednesday night, a second-round match, and a tournament debut. Put all those pieces together, and something bigger begins to emerge. This isn't a coronation. It is something much more durable. The question is no longer whether Alex Eala deserves the stage. The stage is beginning to rearrange itself around her. Tournament directors are adjusting schedules for her. Opponents are preparing for her game, and for the crowd behind her, former world number ones are giving the phenomenon a name. And a national broadcaster's correspondent is telling Canadian audiences what it feels like to hear a Filipino word for fight become part of the soundtrack of international tennis. And now comes the next test. On Friday, August 7th, Eala faces American Katie McNally, who has just eliminated Wimbledon champion Linda Noskova in straight sets. It will be another difficult match, another challenge, another opportunity. But there is one difference this time. Eala doesn't have to convince the crowd to come. They were already there when she arrived. And maybe that is what belonging looks like on the professional tennis tour. Not simply a ranking, not a trophy, not a highlight reel. It is the room rearranging its seats before you even walk in.